The Taiwan Technical Mission, in collaboration with the Department of Environment, continues to seek the partnership of the public in this recycling initiative. Collect and bring your plastic bottles, metal and aluminum cans at any of our collection points in St. Kitts and Nevis. In St. Kitts, visit us at Buckley's across the road from Best Buy Supermarket, in Dieppe Bay on the lawn westward of the football playing field, and in the vicinity of Connery Roundabout. In Nevis, the collection points are Old Artisan Village, Big Six, Delta Petroleum, and X-Petrol. Do visit our Facebook and Instagram pages called Let's Recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis and Department of Environment, St. Kitts, for more information on the collection schedule for these recycling points. In St. Kitts, you can call the Department of Environment at 466-8535, and for Nevis, call Nevis Solid Waste Management at 869-469-1762. Let's recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis as we work towards establishing a more friendly place.
We are live. Thank you to everybody that's tapped in, and you are listening to
He Nuh.
Show on WINN Media 98.9. Today is Sunday, February 12th, and we have in studios with us Stephen Love Smith.
The man said love still, you know?
Yeah, he's by here.
Hello, over he said love still, you know?
And in true LOV fashion, he brought us a bunch of pedals.
Everybody knows you as Love. Stephen L.O.V. Smith.
You feel like when you say Stephen Love Smith, I have to chop things and like I'll be a little glittery.
Yeah, but today we're gonna deep dive on the topic that we started last week, because February is the month of love and Valentine's, and the studio is all decorated in red.
Correct.
But anyway, Mr. Smith, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I do think November should be the month of love too.
Why you feel that?
That's my birth month, bro. I feel like some love should be there. I feel like February should be the month of love because I think that's when I was conceived. And November should be a month of love because I think that's when the love came. That's when the love came from.
That was the manifestation of the
correct.
The manifestation of the love.
Correct.
But I mean, yeah, we're gonna deep dive because we've been having some conversations about love, and love is a very nuanced and expansive topic, right? Last week we had some of the guys in the studio, and we were discussing how we conceptualize love, if unconditional love exists, and we went back and forth on that. Mm-hmm. But this week, I kind of wanted to touch on love from a different perspective, which is the pleasant side of love. How does love manifest when it works?
It works.
Yeah. Have you ever been in love?
I think I have. I think I mucked it up a few times, but yeah, I think I have been in love a few times. And I think I've also witnessed it more so in a positive sense, like maybe is that existentially. I observed it.
Yeah.
In practice. But pleasant love. What is pleasant love? I don't know. What is pleasant love? I feel like love got a duty to it. I don't know. When I was younger, my dad, right, he made mention that like love is commitment. Like that's what it's been for me. Even beyond the feelings. And maybe this is a manly way to say it, but like even beyond the feelings, love is dutiful. Love is commitment on an everyday basis. It might not be like pleasant every day, but you have, as long as we've committed, you have an obligation. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess that's what he taught me. So a lot of the times when I'm going through love, that's generally how I approach it.
Okay. You ever been in love, Tiba?
Of course not. Tiba's never been in love in his whole entire life. Look at this man's face. Never been in love yet.
You gotta be cautious, man, in a relationship, a full-on relationship.
And I'm hoping that everybody knows I'm joking. Tiba?
No, everybody know. Yeah. Tiba is madly in love. Always been in love. Born in love. Conceived in love.
Thrived
in love. Yeah, man, I'm full of love. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I've been in love.
What does it look like for you, though? Like, how... When it works, so we know when you're in a relationship. You know when you're in a relationship, you say you love, right? Mm-hmm. And you have ups and downs nonetheless. There are ebbs and flows in any human dynamic.
Correct.
But when it works, what does love feel like for you?
What does it feel like? I think love is a thing that is consistent. It kind of shows up even when things are not good between two people, right?
You see, I feel like Lonzo gearing up, right? Go ahead, Tiba, sorry, go ahead.
Go.
No, I think you show up is I think I watched this video recently from this guy, and he was talking about how love works, and he's talking about he and his wife been together and every day ain't the same day and stuff like that. But he's like, love works, and his love works for him, and I had the same sentiment where you actually have to work at it. It's not something that you like he said, like you ain't born this way, right? And the same thing you're saying is a duty. That's part of it too, and it maybe say like you said, there's a man way to look at it, like how men look at it, because with the and the ladies' side of things is almost like quality time and more emotions got to be shown and stuff like that. But for us, it's almost like providing is how some of us really think that we're showing we love.
Correct.
And that's part of the duty thing,
Yeah.
because I used to feel as though like me working. If I say I'm with my family, and I'm working for 20 hours every day in the week, it's like she got to know I love her
Yeah.
based on the sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you realize he asks me what pleasant love looks like, and he asks what love feels like, and we haven't really talked about how it feels. I don't know if is this a man thing where we don't really like attribute feelings per se to the whole love practice.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had this exact conversation last week about how the different genders engage with love, and not necessarily engage with love, but how we communicate.
Well, okay, hold up. I mean, let me back up a little bit, because we're talking about the feel from our perspective, right? How we feel like to
From a man's
from men.
perspective. Yeah.
Okay, so I think for us, it would feel a lot like coming home and just being able to relax.
Love is peaceful.
Love is peaceful. It has to feel peaceful. It has to be gentle. Like, I think a woman.
He making me laugh. This guy is making me laugh. You know he making me laugh? Because he's like, I just waiting until I get a chance
to lay it out.
To dismantle this whole thing.
No, man, go.
But I believe that a woman like sets the tone of a home, right? If you want your home to be peaceful, check the woman. If you want your home to be contentious, check the woman, right?
It's interesting, man.
Because check it out. If you as a man, right, and let's say you wake up with your partner and she in a bad mood, you gonna, hey, what's going on with you? Everything okay? And she, and then you just like,
It's uneasy.
it's uneasy.
Yeah.
But let's say you wake up and she's in good spirits and you're feeling kind of like, down. That kind of pick you up.
Yeah, correct.
But you don't work in the reverse. Because you could be, high, and she could be down, and she suck you in. She try to suck you into she wall. Because she set the tone of the home.
How dare you be happy when I'm not happy?
I think it depends though. I think it depends on the partner, because I know some people who the man, if his woman is down, he's known her for such a long time that he knows how to navigate that. It might be something like, a comfortable ritual, a routine that she likes to do. And okay, bye. She in this weird headspace. Let's take a drive. Let's go to this particular restaurant.
I can send you some flowers.
Yeah.
But you see, I talking in the generals. You know what I mean? I talking in the generals of it. You know what I mean? Because of the emotional differences between men and women. Sometimes, if you really want to check the tone of a house, check the woman.
But I
no
feel
excited.
for me, I feel like love is involuntary to some extent.
Involuntary.
Yeah.
Great, I don't.
I dig deep.
Yeah, to the extent that love makes you do things, I've found, at least in my personal experience, that you don't usually do.
What have you done lately, Lonzo?
Man. But I mean, in all seriousness, like, it makes you behave differently, right? So, for me, and I guess it's different for each individual to some extent, but for me, I pay attention. I pay attention to my words, I pay attention to my actions. There are certain things I do, certain things I just don't do, right? And not sure if you've ever been in a position where somebody makes you act out of character because of the way you feel for them. So it's like, okay, you don't typically drive long distances because it's something you don't like. But you meet this girl and you're all building a energy. The vibe is building. And you've been connected to her for a while. it feels like love, because love is also hard to define, but it feels like love. And this one day you just want to see you. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get out of your spirit.
Yeah.
So you jump in the car, you drive to go check for. And that's not something that you would usually do.
Yeah.
Right? So
I guess the question I always have, I think I could definitely relate to that. There's just sometimes you fall for somebody and they just make you act completely
different.
And even things that you thought like maybe meant the world to you, it feels a little, they don't feel as demanding, it doesn't feel as heavy. It's like something about this person or something about this feeling or this commitment that you're making here just feels like it demands, and not demands, because as you say, it's involuntary, it doesn't feel forced. It just feels like, okay, this other stuff that I thought was important, like this is more important. Like Alonzo said with the driving, like maybe you jump in the car and like the drive don't even feel along.
It's worth it. And you know, it always brings me back to that Bob Marley quote where he says everybody's gonna make you suffer, but you just have to identify who was suffering for. Right? And it means then by that virtue, what you deem suffering, what is your struggle?
Correct.
You know what I mean? And it depends on what the vibe is.
I always believe that love is a thing that's going to stretch you and, you know, introduce you to yourself. Like once you fall in love with somebody, because there's things that you wouldn't take necessarily. Like say somebody speak to you a certain type of way, right? When you're in love and that person speak to you in that way, it's almost like you're trying to navigate. Why you can't, because you don't want to respond how you normally would respond to somebody like that.
Self-control.
And self-control. It stresses you. It teaches you.
You find a way to reconcile your feelings. So it's just like, yo, she said I may really like that, but
you know, I always question this, you know, because I don't know if it's conditioning why so much of the love that we experience as men like have to do with kind of like self-sacrifice. Like there's this level.
You believe it? Nice question. You believe it began with like Jesus Christ sacrificing himself?
We believe it was.
You believe it has anything to do with Jesus Christ sacrificing himself as displayed for love?
Boy, maybe. I mean, everything culturally. You can't like say, oh, this is the reason why. Only and of itself why we feel the way we feel about. Because I mean, even in Christianity they talk about Jesus loving the church. Like we must love, like, you know, Jesus loves the church. We must love that way. You know, like give your life, be able, you know, the kind of self-sacrificial way. So I mean, I do think that has some kind of contribution to the Western world and why we feel that way. But I always feel like, even though women do sacrifice, I don't feel like their appreciation of it is built upon that level of sacrifice. It's not like it's predicated on, you know, I met somebody and I'm going to sacrifice for them and that's how I'm going to show love. That's how I inhibit this. You know, it doesn't, I don't know why we as men, I guess the point I'm getting at is that we as men, we sacrifice a lot for love without saying anything. It's not like I'm gonna go, bah, you know how much of it's only when we get to a point of breaking.
I think
it's like betrayal. Like, how dare you say this to me?
I think the sacrifices are different though.
So then hold on, just take on that point right there. So then you think that the sacrificing, from the feminine perspective, from the feminine side of things, if they show appreciation, that's how love would feel. Like we could feel the love if they show the appreciation for that sacrifice.
That is exactly a point, yeah. Because the thing is, I think for men, like feeding that appreciation is very important. Like if I'm doing something, even if it's love, out of love, and it's not being recognized, like it loses a lot of value.
Yeah,
and
it's the value.
It doesn't have anything to do with public. Like, women feel like men need publicizing and so on. Like, I don't think that's it. Like, I don't need to be on social media necessarily, you know, oh, look at what my man, that's not really it. As long as you appreciate it. It could be really simple. Hey, you know, I really appreciate that you're doing this. Like, the other day I was dating this young lady and she had just this amazing way of just what? Okay. I'll just kick you, man. But she had this amazing way of just showing appreciation. It's just amazing. It's like, it was always like, you know, you did this and I really want you to know that I really enjoyed that. And thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I really appreciate this. And for some reason, it kept encouraging me to want to go.
Do more. It made you feel seen.
Correct.
Yeah. But, so back to the point of sacrifice though. So I think, it's just based on the gender ideals and the things that we are attached to, because I think we function more in the physical realm, like the tangible, right? Things that you could touch and feel and interact with. And women are more compassionate and self-serving. So they sacrifice through service, I feel. Because a man would be doing all of these things, but then a woman would show her love through cooking and cleaning and, you know what I mean? You come home and she squeeze out all the blackhead them out your face.
Oh, that sounds like something that's a real love language for you.
No, mainly like people touch my face.
But it does hurt. I don't know why some men like it, but I don't know.
But, you know, I mean, I think love just manifests in different ways. But as men, I feel like we don't really engage with that part of it. And maybe it's because communicating about feelings doesn't come natural to us. I don't think.
I mean, there's a stoicism to it because I mean, if you get to a point where your feelings are determining your direction, I feel like that's one of the most unmanly feelings you could have. Like if you, for example, I mean, I've never known OLONZO long enough to know if he does cry and so, but
no,
like I knew the answer to that before I went into it. But I'm saying like if you are in public or something and you break down for whatever reason, it might be a good reason, but you break down. I don't think that as a man that makes you feel the most comfortable because what's happening is you're being led by your emotions versus being led by your own volition. Like you're not being led by your own, you know, your own thoughts, your own dreams, your own, you know, your own reasoning.
And it's a display of vulnerability that makes you feel weak.
It makes you feel weak. And I don't know if it's because we've been conditioned. Man, if it's conditioning or it's natural. I really can't tell the difference at certain points because, I mean, I've been conditioned. But it's like once we're being led by feelings, it makes you feel like you're not in control of your own destiny. It makes you feel less of a man. Whereas I think with women, when they're being led by their feelings, I think they more feel a little bit more comfortable, especially if they're in a safe space. Like if somebody has provided an environment where they could thrive and be emotional and even be led by their emotions, they are able to express it and they feel way more. The vulnerability doesn't get to them because they feel safe.
No, it's empowering for
It's
them.
empowering because they could be themselves, you know what I mean? But as a man, no, it's like if I am doing the same thing, then I'm not creating a space where it's safe to be vulnerable because I am also incredibly vulnerable.
You see, and even that, like when you boil it down to relationships, that's why sometimes you see is very, let's say you meet a girl and, you know, it's nothing serious. Just somebody just talking to you, nothing serious. You as a man could be open to the point of just letting her be vulnerable as much as she wants to be and she gets totally comfortable with that. Whereas, let's say she's in a serious committed relationship now and that can't be maintained like right through the next 20 years of her life. She gonna feel like, oh, like he don't
changed,
even, he changed, like, he don't even think, but not realizing like that part of it is just like, it cannot be sustained like from a man.
At least not 100% of the time. I mean, I do think that a safe space is important as a man to cultivate in a relationship. Even on a level of security, like, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if something has to happen, then I'm going to put myself in between.
I think I was talking more from the perspective of, let's say that she is having a like an emotional tantrum. Once ago, let's say you were just doing the courting. You could have looked past some of it. But then if that tantrum happens like over a period of time for like, you know, for years, you just like, come on, man, we don't binge this already.
Correct. But that's also maybe a sign of a little bit more immaturity too, because I mean, enveloping a nice space where you could be emotional and whatnot is cool, but trying a tantrum, you know, might be a sign of something a little bit different, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys see it. Like not being able to control your emotions to a point where you're going to make it a problem for us to be able to function properly. Like, if you're going to throw a tantrum in a supermarket like a child, you know, only children do that because they don't have to face the repercussions of being an adult and do that.
And like I was talking about, like, how the love is stretched, because let's say now you've been around that person long enough and you realize that that's just the way that person learned how to communicate emotions.
Well, bye.
Right? So then, but you love this person, right?
Of course.
So you're just like, you come off the floor.
Stop doing this.
Don't
Stop embarrassing. But the thing is, again, if why is interesting because I mean, I've always struggled with where's the cutoff and where's the point where you double down. Because I think there are some points in any relationship, in any love entanglement, where it's like, okay, this is good, this is great, but there are some issues that we have here.
Yeah.
Are these issues enough for me to say, break this off, or are these issues, just for me to work with this person to get past them?
I think it's a function of communication as well. Like, what is the communication dynamic in the relationship? Because some people learn, like Tiba say, from the family, how to deal with conflict resolution.
Correct.
And the approach that isn't necessarily the best. There's some persons who they don't necessarily feel good having hard conversations, so they just shut down. And they need time. You need to give them like a day. And it depends on your personality as well, because you might be a man that can't function with that.
That level of,
Right, with that distance. Okay, listen, this thing feel uncertain for me. I don't like how it feels. How do we resolve it? No, we need to find a middle ground.
Right.
And I think that intersection between how you communicate and how your partner communicate is where the love exists. Because if you could find a middle ground, like, okay, yo, I see you in your feelings, and I can't do this, I can't do this distance thing. Because if you're saying you love me, then you ain't supposed to be able to go sleep and wake up with the same energy.
Because you got predetermined like markers for love, then like it's like love can be, we go to sleep, man.
Yeah.
But that's interesting, because I mean, even if the person didn't grow up with that sort of culture, then where does that put you? It doesn't mean that their love is less.
No, it requires a training now, because we need to learn how to coexist, right? I feel like love is coexistence, because we're gonna always be different. That's at least this is my thesis. This is my perspective. We'll always be different, right? And no matter how a person presents themselves, I always say, in the first couple of months of an interaction, you're meeting your representative.
The salesperson.
Yeah, when you
Like,
gain,
buy this.
and you know what I mean, all of the masks start falling off is when you see the real person.
And
You
that
start
works.
noticing.
I think that's true, because it works on two levels as well. I mean, even when you as a guy, you're dating, and so what you put out there is really the best version of
The ideal.
the ideal Stephen, the one who can stay up until 4 o'clock with you and
But
talk.
that's unsustainable.
But that is absolutely unsustainable. And the thing is, I guess with time, you would know that this is just a phase that it has to progress to something more sustainable. Otherwise, we're gonna be up till 4 o'clock. We can't get no work done, and we're gonna burn ourselves out like Romeo and Juliet in 6 months. But again, it's like, is it bad to have the ideas? Is it natural to have the ideas? I think sometimes for me, when I catch myself doing a little bit more, like especially if it comes from a point of I'm trying to impress or something, I try to reel it back.
Yeah.
Like, because if this is not something that I could sustain, it's probably not something that I want to get the person into the attitude of expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you said something there that, even though it could sound hard and very masculine, in reality, that's what it is. Like he said that it requires a training,
Yeah.
right? And that just sounds like
You can't tell a woman that.
it sounds cool, right?
That's so like, like a puppy dog.
But it actually is the truth in
It's the
essence,
truth,
and it go both ways, right? Because you have to, like I said, the love won't work, right? So you can make you work on your tone of voice, you make you work on, coming home early. This thing that the guy was saying to him,
Discipline, yeah.
like in this kind of, so you have to break certain things within yourself, both parties, to kind of, reach a point where everybody feel like, they're being loved correctly.
So to that point, do you feel like love makes you more tolerant? Because getting to those spaces and navigating all of those nuances, right, require a lot of tolerance. Because for me personally, I'm not accustomed to certain things, right? I'm very particular, and if it ain't going in a direction that I feel like it's supposed to be going, especially consistently, and that's what happens in relationships. You see consistent behaviors, and a lot of them are behaviors that you're attempting to change, or you have your partner change, or you're making your own personal adjustments. So it ain't even a one-sided thing. But as they strive towards whatever you've requested, right? So let's say it's, hey, I don't really like when we're having a hard discussion and you're talking over me. Let's say that's the baseline, right? But they're so conditioned, they're so programmed to respond that way, because that's how the man and the sister used to fight from the time they was 11.
Yeah.
So they done forward now, and
It's a
that's a habit. It's tolerance now that's required for you to be able to look at it and say,
Well, I mean,
Bye.
well, there's a thing, right? Maybe it's time for you to change.
Boy, I like you guys a lot. This is fun.
Hey, worry God.
And because you realize, okay, then let's say that you are the person that could see, like, okay, then this is how that person communicates, this is how the person grow up. Okay, then I love this person and I'm going to deal with it, right? Okay, then I could see that from like an aerial position, and I could see what's going on there. So then maybe I need to change and figure out a way how to
navigate around it versus hitting it head on. Is it could I fall right in the middle here and said I kind of agree with you both that there's a combination of things that needs to happen? Because I think you asked the question, does love make you more tolerant? But I don't know if I see tolerance and sympathy maybe on the same level in this regard, or sympathetic, you know. And I'll say what I mean. What I mean is that if your partner has a trait that is, you know, problematic, and you have to determine if this is problematic just because of what you're used to, or problematic for the relationship in general. If it's going to hurt us in the long run, this might be something that we need to work on versus something that you need to work on. And this is where I think Tiba's point is really important as well. You are going to change your outlook so that you could become more supportive of that person's change in the long run.
But here's the thing, and these are the interesting nuances in relationships. Some of those things are very triggering, right? Because to the point that was made, it is a communication break, right? I'm trying to communicate, and you're talking over me because you're just trying to interject your point. So you're really hearing nothing I'm saying.
True.
You just want to be heard, right? And you're forceful with it. Okay. How do you really make that change? Because now that requires the stoicism and a consciousness, and for you to be able to objectify the situation, step away from it, look at it and say, okay, you know what? In the pursuit of love, I won't respond, right? Let's say that is the way that let's say that's the medium. That's the way that you engage with it, right? Finding that balance. So Tiba says maybe you need to look at yourself and say, well, maybe I need to change. What is the change that you make in that situation? Let's say is, okay, this is contentious. I don't feel good about the fact that she just did that, but let me step back. Let me just be quiet and allow her to say
what she needs to say. But yeah, in that case, you've answered the question. That's exactly what it needs. Like, this is where I think I'll double down and say what I said before, is that if there's an issue in the relationship, the issue is not just one person. You see what I mean? Because you're in the relationship now, it's not your problem, it's a us problem. If you are talking over me, or you're doing something that's triggering to me, I gotta find a way so that trigger doesn't demoralize or destroy whatever potential gains we could have toward fixing this issue. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like if I'm going to be triggered when she talks over me, I need to work on not being triggered when she talks over me, because me being triggered while she talks over me is going to create a more contentious situation.
But then working on it wouldn't require tolerance?
Yeah,
you first need to be tolerant of the behavior.
But then depending on the problem that you're solving, tolerance might be the way to deal with it, or any other plethora of different attributes that you need, whatever tool you need. And I guess that's why we are men. You see the problem, you see the issue, and I'm not trying to be sexist about it, but I found it to be true. You see the issue, you look at the issue as objectively as possible. How do we get from this point point F, because we're getting an F on this test right now, to at least a B, and then we could start working on this A+. You know what I mean? The A+ might take some time, but how do we get from F to B? Right. And going from F to B might not be going down to G, but it might be. It might be going down to G. Maybe a firm stance might be what your partner needs, because that's what works. I'm not saying go out and hit the people and child by any means. I'm saying that you need to understand your partner. So you need to strategize based on what you know of the situation and make the different allowances and adjustments so that you could get you and your partner to the point where you'd be a lot less problematic.
And I feel like love is what would
motivate that. Yeah.
Allow you to make all of those.
Because that's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work. Like, think of it like this. You get fat over time. Nobody gets fat after eating one pumpkin pie. People get fat over years and years and years. It's the same thing with behavioral issues. You don't develop behavior just out of so. You develop behavior after
Consistent practice.
consistently having to deal with a situation, dealing with it with this way, and getting, I don't know if favorable results is the way, but getting some results that protects you from whatever you're afraid of, right? Usually when you're dealing with trauma, you're trying not to re-engage trauma, so you're trying to go away from that. So you do anything you need to do to distance, whether that be fighting, running, shutting down, whatever you need to do to protect yourself, right?
Fighting as in combat sports.
Combat,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Back, like maybe it's, it's fighting argument, being argumentative. Maybe it's fighting physical, because some people, that's the way they deal with the issues too. They deal with the issues with a physical level of force.
Yeah.
And some women are very physically abusive. Like, we don't talk about it nearly enough, because a lot of the times men don't respond in kind. Thank God. Otherwise, there'll be a lot more very damaged women. But I'm saying a lot of women deal with things in a very physical way, because whatever home they grew up in or whatever situation they found themselves in, that was the way that either the site dealt with, or that's the way they dealt with it themselves. Right? But what I'm saying, to the point, just like a fat person, just like getting fat, having a habit, it takes time to develop. When you reach to the point where this is problematic and somebody loves you enough to say, look, listen, I'm going to work with you, this is going to take some time. It might take a few years. The only thing that's going to motivate you to not abandon this mission here and just go to a next person who doesn't have the same combination of issues. They're going to have issues, but not the same exact combination of issues. It got to be love, or at least some level of interest.
Okay. So, follow-up question. How important is humor in a relationship, in an intimate relationship? Because this is something I'm learning now. So I'm asking just to get the feedback.
What is humor? Humor is the way that we digest difficult things without going insane.
What you feel, Tibo? What you feel is the value of humor in relationships?
I mean, it depends.
Man, I think humor is very important not to take yourself serious.
Too seriously.
Too seriously.
I mean, if you don't take yourself seriously,
Too seriously.
Nobody can take you seriously too.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
No.
Thanks for the typo.
Wow, a little music in there is good.
Yeah, man. There's a little sound.
But continue, Tibo.
Yeah, I believe that you're not supposed to take yourself too serious in whatever regards of life, like with the relationship, business, every single part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take it serious. You don't take yourself too seriously.
Because you could get broken easily.
Yeah, because if you're not gonna bend, you're gonna break, right? If
Yeah.
you're too
Be like
rigid.
water.
Yeah.
But so what I'm realizing is humor is important in love. I think humor and love almost go hand in hand. And this is just from my level of analysis. When you love somebody, you also have to extend the grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the extension of grace is magnanimity. The extension of grace is tolerance. But I think the extension of grace also requires some humor. Like you need to be able to, levity.
Yeah.
Be able to laugh after certain things.
Correct.
Right? And what I've observed is the way men communicate and the way women communicate in most instances fundamentally different. Mm-hmm. Like a woman would say something and not have a depth of feeling attached to it, right? She just say it like half cuff. You just roll our shit on effortlessly. Mm-hmm. But because we think about things very deeply, for the most part, we might take it all the way serious, like, yo, she just said that what I mean, and start analyzing it or over-analyzing it. And then our response to the thing that was said creates this cascading effect. So the tension now begins to build because now she got to double down on the stance. Whereas if you had kind of just danced around it, it would have been a different energy. And I'll give you an analogy, an example of what I'm talking about. So there's this book that I'm reading called We're the Superior Man, right? Mm-hmm. And he was creating a sequence, so painting the picture. Man messages his wife. He says to his wife, listen, baby, we're going to the movies tonight. Mm-hmm. So she's excited. She's like, okay, cool. Boom. What time the movie start? The movie starts at 9. So she tells him, okay, we gotta get home by 7. So she notices 7:30 comes and he ain't home. 8 o'clock reach, he just pull it in. She's infuriated now, pissed off. Oh, you know, you're supposed to reach home since whatever.
7 o'clock, yeah.
Right. And she going off. The book says the average man usually plays into that. Starts to explain and says, oh, but were you overreacting? We still got time. We got hour. You know what I mean? The whole thing. He says the superior man looks at that situation and says, okay, babe, goes over, kiss her. Sorry, I'm late. But we have some time. Kiss her and say, go get dressed. And just move on. Right? No, you don't allow yourself to gain your feelings. That required some humor. You laugh after the situation.
Yeah, you have to be able to. Yeah, try it out. The thing is, what you just described just now, I feel like I have a few women in my life, not women in my life like women dating, but a few, you know, friends, right, who think the same. Like I would make jokes. I'm a sucker for levity, right, and what that would mean is that the things I would make joke of, some people might not find them to be particularly hilarious. That's the problem you have when you're humorous. Like your jokes are making a land every time. Yeah. And I could tell you the honest truth. There's one specific person I feel my jokes land about 40% of the time, right? So the other 60% is
offense,
crisis management, right? It's like what did I say? You know, you said no, I don't. I have no idea what I said. I made 18 jokes today. Which one of them, not which one, which 60% of these jokes offended you? So I could start nailing down each one. You know, and maybe I'm not being a superior man. Maybe the other way is like, get over that, let's move on, right? Maybe that's the way. But I guess, you know, my way of dealing with it is just like, let me hear it. And she would be like, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, well, let's move on.
Yeah. it's crazy because, and even prior to reading the book, I have this guy that, you know, we work closely together. And he has that same type of levity, like everything is a joke.
Yeah,
you know, his spirit is very light, very
jovial,
fluid. Yeah, he's a jovial guy. And I've paid attention to one of his relationships. So he has a relationship, platonic, but with another girl, right? And the girl is very intense in the way she communicates. Like, boy, don't play with me, you know. You know what I mean? She's very aggressive. And she communicates with him in that way. And he laughs it off and they have an amazing relationship.
Correct.
And there are things that she has done that I expected him to take offense for. Just looking at it as an observer. You know what I mean? Just based on how I hear the communication playing out. And the way he would respond to it is like, effortless, and water just roll off.
You think it's easier to do that in a platonic relationship versus an intimate one?
He does it in his intimate relationships.
No, as in with the relationship dynamic in that specific situation.
In that specific situation, what I'm saying is, I've seen it in his personal relationships as well.
But you see, I think sometimes when you associate a person to be humorous, right, it's easier for people to accept humor. But let's say you're a person who is like who people see as a serious person, right? And let's say you try to add the humor to your relationship, your partner could potentially be offended.
Yeah, they perceive it as you being disingenuous.
Correct. Because let's say you're a serious person, right? They might even feel like, because you're serious and you kind of always like
it's kind of stoic, yeah.
Kind of stoic. It's almost you're always in control. So the fact that you make a joke about it, they perceive that as even maybe you trying to be in control of this situation, and they're not. Like you might, you walk over and say, you know, babe, you kiss. Don't kiss me. Don't touch me. You go on into that, and then that could be like repeated in that same instance, and then it's okay. Then how is the way of the superior man now to kind of like?
I mean, the stakes are higher. I think in a relationship, the stakes are higher, especially emotionally, because what you make joke of in a relationship. You make joke in a platonic relationship, there's no repercussions. There's like, I mean, the most you could do is get vexed, but I mean, it's not like I have to live with you or go home or interact with you in a deeper social sense, a deeper connected sense. But I mean, what Alonzo was talking about is so interesting because I feel like when it comes to those kinds of relationships, we have a jovial person, a very serious person. I think the mesh that brings them together is the acceptance. Even though that person is being serious and be like, oh, y'all is playing. trust me, there is some connective tissue there. Some part of that person that jovial person represents a part of them that they don't access very often, and vice versa. But once they could accept each other, once there's like some level of connective tissue in there, it's like you accept me for who I am, I'm serious, and I accept you for who you are, you're jovial. It might not come off that way, but the consistency of interaction proves that is so.
And
because she doesn't have to interact with him on that level all the time. You know what I mean? She doesn't have to look or seek out ways to interact with him. You made a mention that they are very close, which means that at some level they would have made a decision that I like this person, or at least like to be around this person. Otherwise, we keep it very straight and flat.
But I think his jovial nature is what makes him as accepting as he is, because he doesn't take
Anything
much things
what she says,
personally,
usually.
right? So, because you have that jovial nature, it allows you to be more accepting.
But you
right?
see,
But then what about her? Because if she's seeking him out, you see what I mean? If she's the serious one, like accepting his jovial nature has to be some part of that connective tissue. Otherwise, she would never seek him out. They would never be close.
Yeah, but she doesn't connect with most people. Like, so what I've found is you have a lot of serious people, they aren't very social, right? Because they have pockets of friendships, and the friendships have to be deeply rooted. He can have surface relationships and he can have deep relationships.
Correct. He has a dynamic.
Right. So, and what I've seen is he just has that energy where he's able to lighten a room. And I feel like some of that behavior is informative. Now, I'm not saying adopt everything, because it is inborn. You really know where he get out from. He just got a style.
You could learn to be
But you
funny.
could learn. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But,
So,
it's a trait that you could-
but another big thing to keep in mind though is perception. Because if somebody perceives you to be a certain way, you could be out of jovial, you think like you could train yourself to be a certain way. That set of people can always see you the same way. Okay, like for instance, a lot of years, like my father always perceived me as a person to bunch of money.
Oh wow, that's
Like that was a perception.
Uh-huh.
So even after like
it started to be
more, financial, what the word is,
prudent.
prudent,
Financially
and start paying off like loans and doing this, and it took him like a while to recognize and talking about years. He always said people, actually he could bunch of money. Yeah.
yeah, but we're talking more love, right?
No, but it's love too. But it's
No,
love.
no.
But we're talking about, okay, my point is about perception. Because even if, let's say that at one point somebody perceive you to be like jovial, but the perception change, right? And they have a different perception of you now. And you try to be jovial with them. Once the perception change,
I mean, if the perception change, I mean, it could probably change. I do understand what you're saying, though. It could come off as forced if you are training yourself to be better. But then I don't think you should let somebody's opinion stop you from
Advancing.
growing and
Yeah.
advancing as a person.
And
Because
I think it depends on delivery as well.
Yeah.
How you present it. Because if it's forced, if it feels forced, then but you look for moments where you could
inject levity
inject it, yeah,
naturally.
organically.
Yeah.
So ain't like, okay, boy, I'm practicing, so she said this and he burned me, but I can laugh. No, that's not what I meant. It's okay, you see it, and you know what I mean. There are certain things that you would take seriously, and on introspection you realize, by it dying really that serious, yeah. And slowly.
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what's crazy about advancement? Let's imagine like you could be with somebody, let's say for 5 years, and you're making those advancements now. Like after 5 years, you're trying to kind of reform yourself in essence. You might meet somebody else who will quickly.
Yeah, because that's all I know. Yeah.
That's all I know of you, right? So then it could potentially make you feel like this person don't even get me. You know, like seeing that actually made it, and then you can make a decision to say, you know what, let me just leave that person
Slide.
alone and slide.
That might be a bad
Because
decision.
now I feel more appreciated by this person.
Yep.
But you see, that's a bad slide because you're sliding only based on what you've developed in maybe a short space of time.
Which is
whereas your jovial nature, but the essence of who you are, this person who's known you for 5 years,
Right.
they know more than just what the comedian Atiba. They know, or the comedian Steven. Let me make it
They're
personal.
more-
They know the other sides. Right,
Yeah.
they're way more. Even though this change might seem like a big change, it probably is because it's gonna change your perception and so on. But that person knows you better than this new person. And I think sometimes, a lot of the times, even when it comes to love, to bring it back, when it comes to love, a lot of the times I feel like we start changing and we kind of expect the person that we're with or the person that
To
loves us
change.
to change as quickly and as dynamically as us. If I start getting into, drinking, like if I wake up tomorrow and say, but you know what? I want to get into this drinking thing. Somebody with me for a while might be like, but Stephen, you don't drink. Like, what's going on? No, that's going to be a big change for them because that's not part of the dynamic that they got
They've
used
grown
to.
accustomed to, right?
So what I need to do is understand that this is a big change for this person and give them the grace necessary for them to, I don't want to say catch up, but that's the only word that comes to mind right now, is to catch up with you as you grow. Because they're going to do the same thing. Like, I almost feel like sometimes love is like a relay, especially with long relationships. It's like a relay. Like sometimes they're passing the baton and you start going off, and it's only a matter of time before you catch back. They catch up. Not like a relay, but like you're running. I don't know. Bad analogy. What I'm saying is sometimes, right? That's also a joke. So sometimes you're gonna take the lead and you're gonna be in front, and this person is they're still running behind you. As long as they're still running behind you, there's still hope, because at some point you're gonna get tired and they're gonna catch up and they're gonna pass. They're gonna do things that you have to get used to as well. If you want for them to be gracious with you, then you gotta also be gracious
Lead,
with them.
yeah, you gotta lead with the example.
That's what things like Chris Rock, right? So then you be the lead singer, so then you can play
You
the
play the
tambourine.
tambourine. That's the better analogy. Thank you, Chris Rock, for that piece of nugget of wisdom. But yeah, something you play the tambourine, you can't be the lead guitarist.
Yeah, and nobody want to see what you say, angry tambourine player.
Nobody want to see that you just stuck fierce banging your backside with the tambourine.
And that's the thing. Love makes you do those things.
It does. It's the motivation. It's the glue that puts it, makes it worth it.
Yeah, it gives you a different level of balance. At least from my experience. You think about things a little bit more deeply, and you realize that your existence isn't just your existence.
True.
So back to the point of service, sometimes when you're in love, you start thinking about building out a life with this person.
Correct.
And what would that life look like? And it might be children and a house and cars and businesses.
Might just be traveling.
It might just be traveling because the person likes to travel.
New experiences.
And it is about accommodation. Like, it makes you accommodate people's interests.
A difficult perception that I've recently been mulling my head over about is that I feel like sometimes when you're with somebody for a while, I don't know if it's comfort or if it's that you feel as a man investing more is not going to bring you more. I don't know what it is, but like I was thinking that my experiences with long-term relationships, our relationships over 4 years, 3-4 years, right? I've had a couple of those. Is that sometimes it feels like adapting and adjusting and bringing new things into that relationship, or doing new, more expansive things. Maybe that would take more investment. Maybe traveling to more exotic locations and so on. Like you feel like doing that doesn't bring you any more satisfaction, or it doesn't change the relationship dynamic to meet the investment. I don't know if I'm making sense. I don't know if you guys understand what I mean. Like, say you're with a young lady, right? And things are not perfect. Things are never perfect. I don't know when we said, happily ever after. Anyway, what I'm saying is, you're with a young lady and this is going well, it's going great, it's going well for like 2-3 years, but it has a bunch of flaws, right? Yeah. She has complaints, you have complaints. Most of the time, men complaints are very synonymous with men's other complaints. But anyway, you have complaints, she has complaints. She's asking you to redouble up. She's asking you to say like, hey, look, this thing that you don't do enough, I need you to do it 10 times more. And you're like, but I have my issues as well. Like, could we do that on this side as well? Could this be 10 times more over here? Or, and he's like, yeah, it could be. Because women can always, to say what they want. And you say, okay, well, I don't feel so. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is going to make me extremely uncomfortable. And this is after a while. This is not like early on you're going to be willing to do it because you feel like there's hope. But like after a few years have transpired, it's like, I don't want to do that. That makes me feel uncomfortable.
But then there's a disconnect there then.
Correct.
Because
probably.
If you are unwilling, if any party, if any, person in the relationship is unwilling to make adjustments, because in an effort to make the partner feel a little bit more comfortable, then that's a slippery slope because then the
That's
relationship
rocks.
starts going downhill.
Yeah.
So we approaching the end of the road.
So let me ask
Correct.
you guys a question, right? You know, some people are very scared and easy with the concept of losing yourself while in a relationship.
I guess that's where it was
But
going at.
in parts of it, right? Do you have to actually, in relationships, kind of like lose yourself though?
Become a different person. I think so. I think there's why not?
Yeah.
I think that's the basis of it.
Yeah, but I think life
That's
is,
growth,
life is constant evolution.
Correct.
So I think losing yourself is if you're doing things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right? But if what you're doing is wholesome, if what you're doing moves you forward and you feel like, okay, this is a comfort zone I've been in, because I think a lot of it has to do with being in a comfort zone, like you're comfortable. So let's say, for instance, the guy is introverted, right? And the girl is extroverted. She likes to party, she likes to socialize. And because they're a couple, she wants him to also join her when she's going out with her friends. She's built this social group, and
She wants him to be.
it could look like you're losing yourself in that, because you might be there, and in the initial stages you're kind of awkward because you ain't really know the people, and it could feel like that. It could feel like you're losing yourself, like, why she just got me
Same
doing
me.
things that the same speed, right? But I think it's trying it, and if it genuinely isn't that vibe for you, then you just communicate that to the partner and say, yo, listen, that's your thing, you know what I mean? And I support you, do your thing, but I prefer to kind of stay home and read. And what we could do is, the compromise is, I would do it with you once every 2 months.
Correct.
I think I could tolerate that.
I think that last part is probably the most important part of the whole thing. Because the thing is, if the person is asking that you participate, I'm not saying that you participate to a level that makes you so uncomfortable that you start like resenting, because I think that's one opening that happens when you're being forced to do something that you don't really want to do. There's a level of resentment when somebody makes you or forces you to do something. But at the same time, in a relationship is a push and pull. Just because something makes you uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's bad.
Right.
And I think you said it best when you said, like, sometimes we're in a comfort zone, and staying home and reading is what I love to do. And no, this is proven. I love to stay home and read, right? But this person is now saying, okay, well, could we go to, Nevis for the weekend and hit up some layman spots? And you're like, wow.
That's a big change.
That's a big change. It might not be something that you've done in a while, so you don't even know how you would necessarily feel. You just feel like, because this is outside the norm, that I'm not going to like it, which is probably the wrong ideology to go into it in the first place anyway. I don't think when your partner introduces something, you're supposed to go in like, I'm going to absolutely hate this, because you might prove yourself to be 100% correct.
So let me ask you a question. Let's say that said partner had come to you and said, Stephen, I really, you like to read a lot, so I want to go to Nevis to check out some layman spots, and I want you to come with me, but I know it's not your thing to do. So what I propose is that next week I'm going to pick a book and I'm going to read, and we're going to read together. You're going to read your book and I'm going to read mine. We're in the same space. But then this weekend,
that's compromise, man. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So like, if you get, because sometimes people will say something to you and it almost feels like it's just like you got to change, versus it being like a conversation about compromise. Okay, I see you like to do this, but let's try this and we could do this too.
That take a lot of maturity, but yes, that's the way to go. Like it's like pitching. Lonzo would know about this art, but like it's like pitching a business idea. Like pitching a business idea. If you're going and say, well, this gonna make me $40,000. That's not the way to start the pitch. Like the pitch is what's in it for you.
But you see that's the next question I had, because I want to ask you guys, have you ever realized that sometimes you could tolerate something more from the same sex versus somebody in the opposite sex type of thing? Like, you could be around your male friend and he could be this way, got bad habits, and your relationship could be from now till I die. But when
Different ideas.
but then you could have like a female now like you're intimate with,
Yeah.
and you can't it's almost you have that same level of tolerance.
Because it's two different universe.
Yeah,
Okay,
man, yeah.
break it down.
Because
That's intimacy
how
versus
I see it, it's intimacy versus I can't even call that
casual.
platonic.
Yeah,
But let's say it's a brother. Let's up it and say like it's a family member that you live with.
brother. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's still different because
It's temporary.
Yeah,
I think there's a permanence to a relationship. Like relationships have a permanence
True, yeah.
in terms of the feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Like
And-
you
and
never
maybe
really
even the ambition of it.
Yeah,
the
you never
goal.
ever most times when you're in a relationship, you feel like this is forever. You feel like if you're a serious
If you're
person.
serious, yeah.
If you're a serious person and you're looking for commitment, because I'm not generalizing, some persons just
Yeah.
are never right. But if you're a serious person and you're into commitment, when you get into a serious relationship, it has a forever feeling. It has a feeling of permanence. So when you're looking at that partner's behavior as opposed to somebody else that is equally as close, so let's say a brother or sister, right? You live with them, but when you go over by your partner doing this thing. So let's say the issue is dishes. Dishes pile up in the sink.
Yeah, man. That's,
Home dishes pile up in the sink. With your brother, there's a certain level of non-attachment to it. Like you're attached in as much as it's in your space, and you're vexed because you gotta witness it, right? So you might be upset about it. The level of disdain for it is different in your personal relationship because you're conceptualizing this is something I'm gonna live with for the rest of my life.
So me ask you,
This is a part of your character.
and to add to that,
Yeah, go ahead.
one thing is that I think also to the person who you end up having a relationship, an intimate relationship with, that person is also a personification of
Right.
what the two of you as a committed unit are.
Yeah, and it's a reflection of you.
It's a reflection of me, like it's a reflection of us. It's a reflection of this unit. Like me and my brother, he ain't a reflection of me. As much as
He's your own man.
yeah, he's your own guy. Like me and him completely different. But not only just that, like sometimes we got pride. I'm not saying we don't have pride for family, because family have a different pride to it. Like I'm
Yeah.
a Smith. This is what I represent. This is what the Smith household have representing. This is what we do. This is our culture, right? But that's still different to, hey, look, I'm gonna partner up with this young lady for the rest of my life, have children with. This is the mother of my children and the keeper of my heart. That's
so let me ask
The
you a
bar
question.
higher.
Let me ask a question in the same realm, right? You mentioned the washing dishes are dishes piling up, right? Do you believe in relationships you're supposed to bring like what you're good at into the relationship? So let's say that you grew up, right, in a space where everything was always well kept, dishes clean, everything clean, or whatever, right? And your partner didn't grow up in that, but they grew up in doing something else. So let's say you're going to work and your partner has a day off, and you come home and there's dishes pile up. Do you think you should try to tell your partner about that, or you just bring what you're good at, what the things that the qualities that you have into the relationship and just
I think is marrying both, right? So I think again this comes down to the point that I made earlier about the question that I asked about the value of levity and dealing with things from a non-emotional space, right? So for me, how I see it is you don't project that. If you come from a space where things are clean, it's about setting the tone. And you start doing it consistently, but you also communicate with your partner. Like, hey, I've been noticing this. And yeah, we need to work on that because it don't really make me feel comfortable.
yeah.
What happens is, depending on the tone of the conversation, it raises their awareness. And if they see you making the efforts, so you're not forced, you ain't forcing them to do it. You've just said to them like, hey, listen, I realize these dishes and it's an issue for me. Especially if I come home and you've been home all day. Like, we need to do a little better. And you go and you do it. And you do it the third day. After a while, if your partner is conscious enough, they will realize ATIBA always washing the dishes. Even if ain't inbound in them.
Yeah, let me
When
make
they
an
say
effort.
4:30,
Let me
like,
make an effort.
ATIBA come home 5 o'clock. May really want him to talk about this, they're going to go and try to do it.
I think this is why one of the best attributes that like attracts me in a mate is conscientiousness. Like caring about what the effect of your actions is going to have on your partner. Like that's one of the characteristics I found that I bonded closely with. And it has to do with that same thing. We are gonna come from different spectrums of life. We're gonna come from different cultures of our home. But if I know that these are your ideas and you know these are my ideas, then we come to some form of, I don't want to call
Synergy.
it some synergy.
Yeah.
Like if I'm better at washing dishes, Sure, I might wash the dishes most of the time, but that doesn't mean
I gotta wash
that I'm
the
going to
dishes
wash the
all the
dishes
time.
all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing with cooking. If I am really good at cooking and you're really not good at cooking, like, because they got some women, no, trust me, my fellas. anyway, then I'll cook most of the times if time permits. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should lax and say, well, I'm never going to cook a day in my life. Like, the internet exists. They'll tell you exactly how much salt to train. Just train the amount of salt, taste it, and if it tastes good, you leave it. If it doesn't taste good, train a little bit more. What I'm saying is, you have to show some level of care to what your partner is upholding, as well as in the relationship.
The reason I ask that is because sometimes you could get caught up in, let's say that you go up in a space and it's orderly. You could go up thinking like this is right, all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is that you might not even notice that you could be OCD, which is an extra thing, but you never really recognize it.
Culturally induced
Right?
OCD, yeah.
Right.
So then it's almost like a high ideal to put on a partner who didn't come from there. So you might not even recognize when they do like small things here and there.
Correct.
Because it's not enough.
Yeah, I think a big part of relationship, again, to the point, love. What love forces you to do is also manage your expectations. Because if you really love this person, you would recognize that projecting your expectations onto them
Is
in that way.
unfair.
You think it's love or maturity?
Oh,
Both. I think maturity, yeah. So to your point, maturity for real. But then you could be mature, and I've seen a lot of mature people who are very petty because
No,
emotions.
older people, but because maturity don't speak by like.
No, but what I'm saying is emotions have an insidious way of just triggering you and making you forget all your maturity and all these things. So much mature people I've seen that just act out because something triggered them, right? So, frustration and anger are very, very powerful emotions.
Important,
Yeah. So sometimes that maturity would only kick in after the fact. Like when you had a chance to reflect on it and say, I responded the wrong way. And that's just a part of being human. So I think love is what would make you kind of center yourself all the time, or at least try to center yourself all the time and look at it from that perspective.
It's very interesting because, I mean, I always ask the question, is it that you have to be mature to be in love? Because I do feel like, I don't know, like, is that a prerequisite?
I think you have to be mature to properly manage love.
But you don't have to be mature. Because, I mean, people...
No, I think you can fall in love. I think you can fall in love at whatever level of consciousness you are.
And a situation could help you mature too.
Right. Yeah, I think love could make you mature because you want to be the best version of yourself for this person. So you're now seeing, okay, yeah, they even just vicariously or just through their actions, through their demonstration, they force you to identify all your flaws. Like, you like this person so much that now they're making you think about being a little bit cleaner, or the way you communicate, or the way you show up in the world, because you've realized, okay, this girl, she been wherever she was on, and she's now with Stephen. But Stephen is a very stoic, very intelligent, very, ambitious dude.
Appreciate that, Alonzo. I feel it in my hand.
Ambitious dude. So now she recognizes, okay, in order for this relationship to work, I have to make certain changes. And those changes she identifies, okay, I can just listen to him as a baseline because she flawed. She ain't really know where she's going, but she starts with just listening to Stephen. So Stephen says, yeah, boom, 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 then she makes the adjustment.
And you see, and that has to happen kind of organically because, forced maturity is...
It's not maturity, that's pretense.
Yeah, because even like forced ripe mango, nah, go sweet,
It's not go sweet. I think it's very interesting, guys. I think there's a lot more to unpack, and I don't think we have it to unpack it. But the one thing about love that is interesting to me, and I think we've been saying it over and over, is that it makes you want to be the best version of yourself that you possibly can be.
Yeah.
And if you're not growing in love, I feel like you're falling out of it. Like if we are not making progress, if we're not progressing, if we're not growing individually and together, like I don't think love has a real purpose in that, because it's gonna challenge you. Every stage of life has a different level of requirement. Like when you're a teenager, like love is different. Like love is heightened and hype and.
But to add on that, some people can't really register when they're progressing. They got some people who like the wheels spinning and they don't even know like
if then there's no markers.
They can't even see the markers. It's almost like having like a lack of like appreciation or gratitude or something like that. They could never really see it. So it's only after the fact when it's hindsight is
yeah.
in 2020.
Yeah,
It's just
hindsight's
like that's the only time they could see it.
2019, I think I'd rather that year.
But I mean, so to the point that you're making though, some things are just unfit,
True.
right? Some things just aren't meant to be. And we also have to take that into consideration.
And, and regardless of love
Yeah.
being
Yeah,
a part
yeah.
of it
Yeah,
or
that's
not.
how you feel like you
Yo.
and this person are gonna just never gel because you come from two completely different worlds.
Yo, listen, fellas,
So-
fellas, listen, right? I think one of the things that love does is you might gotta love somebody from
Afar,
across.
yeah.
Like it's like it's so like we don't even like sometimes I don't think what we see in the fairy tales is anything like what it is because love don't make you make some serious decisions. Like sometimes it's like love make you witness the person that you like all your heart in love somebody else because that person you know that person is better for them than you.
And you know the crazy thing is, love is so potent that it would make you feel like you want to be attached to a person, right? Even though the person drowning you,
Correct.
like
You're dying.
Yeah.
you're drowning, but
And I feel like men have I'm gonna say I think men have a higher tolerance for that than women.
Yeah, definitely.
Like
yeah.
we could stay in a relationship
Because
like
we're
this
accustomed to
thing
sacrifice.
done. Yo, listen, we don't like. I don't know if it's like it's a sunken cost fallacy where we've already put so much.
into it,
Let's just see what happens.
let's just keep.
Let's just keep it going because
Yeah.
we don't know how to work with each
More
other.
gas.
I don't have to be happy for this to work. I could just be here dutifully, just fulfilling what I need to fulfill. And men just
And-
stick in relationships way longer.
Yeah, suffering in silence.
Suffering, and I think that's why women have the 80% divorce rate. Like more women would call for divorce than men.
Yeah, but you know, I think all in all, we touch on a bunch of different issues. But for me, the way love shows up is in tenderness. That's just me, right? So I have this thing that I say I feel like tenderness is reserved for the queen. Because for me, generally, I rigid, I serious with a lot of things. I don't even smile too tough. But
It's
I
not a
feel,
lot today. I feel
yeah,
like
I mean, I
you're
like
getting
you
into
know,
it.
I like you know.
Everyone was in him and that's my.
Oh really? Really? So wait, is Tiba is the one who's training you
don't
too?
study him, yeah. But I'm getting to that space.
But you like I said, love shows up. Okay, let's kind of just say real quick, because for me, I would say like from the conversation that we had, maybe it's appreciation on my side that love shows up. Like that's what you feel like how it looks like.
Commitment. I still think love is love shows up in commitment from both sides and reciprocal.
Yeah.
Like my kind of love is reciprocation. If I'm giving, you're giving.
Match me energy.
Yeah, match it. And I'll try my best to match yours.
You think you can match you?
No, I can't match everybody one, which means I can't be in love with everybody.
But guys, you've been listening to the He Nuh show, and we had a riveting discussion in relation to love. I mean, and I'm gonna get some whips for this conversation.
Well, you'll go home and get whipped and chains and so. That's what you love. That's your
No,
love.
not
Tenderness,
like that.
but whips.
I'm talking about the friends that I have that listen to the show.
Okay,
You know
I
who
got
you
you.
are.
I got you.
They're gonna hear me and they're gonna say, "Why?" Yeah.
Yeah. They say here, you know.
Anyway, here, you know. But you've been listening to the Here You Know show, and as usual, thank you to everybody that stopped in. We have been live streaming on the gram, so the gram is the source, or YouTube, or Facebook. Anywhere you get your fix, tap in, and we're gonna be here next Sunday. So, as usual, have an amazing week. Good evening.
A word from our sponsors.
The Taiwan Technical Mission, in collaboration with the Department of Environment, continues to seek the partnership of the public in this recycling initiative. Collect and bring your plastic bottles, metal and aluminum cans at any of our collection points in St. Kitts and Nevis. In St. Kitts, visit us at Buckley's across the road from Best Buy Supermarket, in Deer Bay on the lawn westward of the football playing field, and in the vicinity of Connery Roundabout. In Nevis, the collection points are Old Artisan Village, Big Six, Delta Petroleum, and X-Petrol. Do visit our Facebook and Instagram pages called Let's Recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis and Department of Environment, St. Kitts, for more information on the collection schedule for these recycling points. In St. Kitts, you can call the Department of Environment at 466-8535, and for Nevis, call Nevis Solid Waste Management at 869-469-1762. Let's recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis as we work towards establishing a more friendly place.